Well, you should practice balance. I mean, if you're practicing balance when you're sitting, what does that mean? It means being aware of the body, whether the body's in a balanced posture, being aware of the mind, whether the mind is in an agitated state or whether it's going unconscious and falling asleep. So that's one balance. The physical body is another balance. The emotions are another balance. You know, that's a pretty common way that people are out of balance, is emotionally, right? They're either depressed or anxious or angry, right? And so what I recommend is if you wake up in the morning and you establish the day by starting with a practice, and when you do that, not only can you start with a practice, but you can also do it by starting your day in a balanced way, starting your day in a balanced state. And balance involves everything that has two sides to it. Everything that's dualistic involves balance, right? And the world we live in is a dualistic reality, right? And so to live in that world and have the influence of your true nature as awareness itself be in balance with that world of appearances, so that the experience you're having, it can always be supported in terms of being brought back to balance by the awareness. So if you're going through the day and you set it up in the morning that, okay, I do my practice, I experience
some love? Get the Google app for iPhone.
Myself in a balanced way, and then as I go through the day, I maintain. This is maybe one of the most important aspects of this, and if you attempt to do this, you'll understand what I mean. That the personality thinks it's awake, right? I mean, you know, before you ever heard of any of this, you thought you were awake, didn't you? Right? So the personality thinks it's awake, right? And so it's not awake, it can't be awake because the personality is not alive, it's not real, so it can't be awake. And if the personality thinks it's awake, what the personality is doing is it's taking that which is awake and considering it to be part of itself, right? So the personality will say, I am aware. Right? I am not, it's not that I'm awareness, no, I am aware, I have awareness, right? I'm the personality and I have awareness, right? But the personality is not aware, it's never aware. And so one of the things that is a delusion, one of the things that is a mirage is when we go through the day and we're experiencing what's happening during the day as if we're awake as a personality. And we don't notice that we've taken on the identity of personality again, right? Because it's such a habitual way of existing, right? And this is one of the reasons why it's a very powerful practice to just do this as an experiment. Take a given day, and in the morning of that day, right, make a commitment, right, to keep checking on awareness all throughout the day. This was talked about by one of the teachers that I study in terms of it's a way of creating certainty about your true nature, right? As you go through the day, as often as you can remember, look and see, is the awareness here now? As often as you can remember, look and see if the awareness is here now. And if you do that during the day as many times as you can remember, right, you'll notice the difference between that and the way your day normally is. Because the way your day normally is we fall into the identity of the personality that thinks it's awake, and that's how the day goes. But if it's possible during the day to keep checking as many times as you can remember to see if the awareness is here, right? When you do that, you'll notice that the awareness is here, right? And you're looking at the awareness, and when you check to see if the awareness is here and you're looking at the awareness, can you then recognize, oh, that's what I am. It's not that I am looking at it from the view of the personality, No, that's what I am. And when I look to see if the awareness is still here, I can notice that I wasn't looking from the awareness before I did that. Do you follow that? I wasn't looking from the awareness before I did that. Because one of the most important things, if you're going to practice being in balance, in order to do that, you have to be awake. What does that mean? It means you have to be attentive. It means you have to be attending all the time. Right? Attending all the time. Being awake means I'm attending all the time. What does that mean? It means if I'm attending all the time as the awareness, I am always aware of thinking, not like I'm doing it. I'm always aware of thinking happening. I'm always aware of emotions occurring. I'm always aware of physical sensations in the body occurring. And I'm always aware that all of that is in constant flux. All of that is impermanent. All of that's changing all the time. Right? But if I can't maintain being a witness to that, if I can't maintain being awake to that consistently, then the only other possibility is I've fallen back into the identity of being the body and the personality. We don't really have, when you begin to do these practices and teachings, we don't really have a clear understanding of how true it is that we consider ourselves to be the physical body. We don't really have an understanding of how true that is. If you come to see clearly that that's not so, and that's not rocket science, all you have to do is understand that anything you can see can't be you. Does everybody get that? Anything you see can't be you. In order for you to see it, there has to be a distance between you and what you're looking at, right? So that's the case with the body. You can see the body, you can see the physical appearance of the body, and you can also see through sensation the internal awareness of the body. You can see that, right? It's reporting to you that that's the case, right? And if you can see it, it just can't be you. It can't be that's you. This is a very important thing to practice being aware of, because it's one of the things that takes time and consistent practice to be aware of, and it's one of the hardest things to get out of. That's why they say in the ancient teachings, the suffering involves old age, sickness, and death. Why? Because if you think you're the body, the old age, sickness, and death is going to be your suffering. Right? It's going to be your suffering because you've identified yourself with the physical body. So that is very important to come out of, but you can't come out of that or anything else. You can't come out of that, or you can't come out of recognizing you're not the thinker of your thoughts or the feeler of your emotions. You can't come out of that unless you can be attending, consistently attending. That's the thing that turns when you wake up, is you realize if you have a direct experience of the awareness itself. When you have that direct experience of the awareness itself, you're at the same time recognizing that you haven't been experiencing yourself as that awareness up until that time. When you have a direct experience of yourself as the awareness itself, part of what's happening is you're realizing until that happened, you weren't experiencing yourself as the awareness itself. Okay? So after you have that experience, right, they call that waking up or kensho or, enlightenment, right? Once you have that experience, right, the misunderstanding that a lot of people have is that once I have that experience, then I'm done. Yeah, then I've woken up and now I'm awake. But that's not the case. Once you have that experience, right, the brain and the mind that's been completely conditioned will keep running, right? And once your attention goes back to that, right, you're back into that, and you again back to sleep, and you forget that you're the awareness itself, and the conditioning that exists will begin to cause the suffering all over again. So waking up should be understood to be the beginning, not the end. It's the beginning of being awake. And if it's the beginning of being awake, then the next thing that has to happen is to start to practice noticing whether you're awake or not. Start to practice noticing whether you're awake or not. When you have a strong emotional experience, you will be able to see that you're not awake. Why? Because when you have a strong emotional experience, if you get angry, right? If you get angry, isn't it true when you're angry that you have a relationship to your thoughts? That is very much a matter of I'm thinking these thoughts. And isn't it true when you're angry that you have a relationship with these thoughts that is very much a matter of not only am I thinking these thoughts, but these thoughts are accurate, these thoughts are true. These thoughts I'm thinking about you who've done me wrong are true, right? I can't emphasize how powerful that is. You know, if you've been angry, how powerful that is. And even after you've been practiced, I had an experience about this the other day. That's why it's important to remain humble, because I've had very few experiences of experiencing anger, but I had an experience of anger that came up the other day, and I was amazed at how overwhelming it was. I was amazed at how, I was watching the angry thoughts, and I literally couldn't get out of believing them. You know what I mean? Especially if they're about somebody you're close to, somebody that you're vulnerable with, right? Somebody that if they do the wrong thing and upset you and make you feel like they're not who you thought they were, if they do the wrong thing and make you feel like, they're out to hurt you, right? And these thoughts start playing in your mind about them, in terms of, oh, I didn't really realize this about them before, but now I do, right? It really starts to sell the product. It really starts to sell the idea that the thoughts you're having are realistic thoughts, and you should believe those thoughts, and therefore you should be angry, and then you feel the anger, and then anger stimulates another set of the thoughts, and then you come back to that, and the thoughts are appearing and so forth. And then one of the thoughts that occurs is the thought that says, and if you don't believe these thoughts, and if you don't take the warning that they're giving you, you're going to be a sucker. You're going to continue to be hurt by this person, because you're going to be a doormat, because you're going to let it happen. You're not going to fight for yourself when it's time to fight for yourself. And don't let that happen to you, because if you let that happen to you, then you're going to be suffering at the hands of this person from now on. It sells the product. You know what I mean? So it really takes a lot if you're under the gun of intense emotion, whether it's fear or anger, because they're two pretty intense emotions, right? When you're under the gun of intense emotions like that, it really takes a lot to stay awake. And you have to be prepared for it to occur that you're going to go back to sleep. Because the first time you have an awakening experience, that's the beginning of a process in which now the name of the game is, can you stay awake? Right? You've had this experience of being awake. Now the name of the game is, can you stay awake? And so one of the things that you can do to understand the challenge of that is to wake up in the morning and make a commitment that during the day today, I'm going to check in to see if the awareness is still here as many times as I can remember to do it. Now, a couple of things will happen. At the end of the day, you will notice how few times you did remember to do it, right? And then if you did remember to do it, right, each time you did it that many times, if you were successful in doing it a lot of times during the day, then you'll realize that when you were doing it, you were coming out of not being aware of being the awareness to noticing the awareness. Every time you noticed that you were coming out of not being it, noticing it, right? So that gives you some feedback about how asleep you are, or about how easy it is to fall back into the habit of identifying yourself as the physical body and the personality. Yeah.
So did your anger dissipate when you saw that it's not real, it's just your thoughts?
Well, for the reason it humbled me is because for a while I was lost in the sauce. For a while I actually believed the thoughts that were occurring, right? They seemed to make sense. They seemed to be real, you know what I mean? Because if you've been having a habit of believing your thoughts, especially when you're angry for so long, right? That the brain and the mind are very good at producing just the right thoughts that you'll accept and you'll believe, right? So it's not an easy kind of thing. So for a while I was lost in the sauce, and I kind of knew I was, but I couldn't get out. I couldn't get out of these thoughts. Just kept coming, and they were begging me to accept them, right? So I couldn't get out. And then what happens is once the anger starts to calm down, once it starts to subside, if it subsides enough, then it's a little easier to see it, right? So at some point you could see it, and then you're on the other side of it like that. But you have to be in, one of the places that people fail in this, walking this path and practicing these practices, is they practice these practices, they may have a glimpse of the truth, they may have a glimpse of the reality of the awareness, and they may understand that this is actually me, this awareness is actually me, right? And then they have an expectation about it, right? Then they expect that I should now be able to stay awake because I have woken up, right? No, but that's not going to be the case, and so they have an expectation about it. They have, they're feeling good, they're feeling the freedom, the elation of it all, you know, like that. And then something happens and they go into an upset state, all right? And then if they go into an upset state, they say, well, I must have never had it in the first place. Right? Either that or they say, this really was a fraud, this product didn't pan out, and so I have to really reconsider whether meditation is something that I want to spend my time doing. And so a lot of people give up. It's the same way when people come into this class that I call tourists, right? I know it happens, you know, they're trying it. That's how the personality does everything. It tries it to see if it likes it. Because it's not going to do anything it doesn't like. It's not going to do anything that's too inconvenient. It's not going to do anything that's too hard, right? So it's going to try it. It'll try it. And they listen to, the tourists will come and they'll listen to the talk and the possibility, to listen to the possibility, oh, that sounds good, that sounds good. I'd like to have that, I don't want to suffer. And then we do the practice, right? Well, they're brand new at the practice, so they're just going to sit there and watch thoughts for the whole time. It's like Sam Harris said. He said a lot of people who start to practice meditation in the beginning, they think meditation is thinking with your eyes closed. Because that's the only thing that happens when they try and meditate. They just sit there and think with their eyes closed. And they don't even know what you mean when you say you can move your attention away from the thought process, right? And so after experiencing that, they say, I don't know whether it's me or whether this doesn't work or whether what the deal is with this, but I'm not coming back for more of this. It was no fun sitting there watching my thoughts and realizing that my thoughts are racing and my thoughts are, you know, negative thoughts, worrisome thoughts, fearful thoughts, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And then the other thing that happens is that people will accept on faith, because it does in the beginning involve faith, right? Because you're not experiencing meditation yet, right? So people will accept on faith the idea that this works, and then they are strong enough as a personality. You know, if they're a winning personality, they're somebody that accepts challenges, right? So they're going to stick it out, they're going to see this through, and they're going to succeed at meditation. So they're going to keep practicing, they're going to keep practicing. But they haven't meditated yet, right? They're just trying to meditate, which will never work, right? They're trying to meditate. And then they become a student of meditation, right? And as a student of meditation, they'll listen to the teachings. Their practice hasn't revealed the actual experience of meditation yet. So they're listening to the teachings and they're trying to meditate. They're the ones that have the yes but questions. Well, yeah, but how about this, right? That's the personality talking. It's always the personality talking, you know, but how about this? Well, isn't it, but doesn't, you know, that kind of thing, right? Because the reality of, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know, anybody that teaches meditation will make time for questions, right? But they understand the questions really are taking away from what is the most important aspect of the teaching. What is the most important aspect of the teaching? No? It's important, but it's not the most important aspect of the teaching.
That our awareness always has been.
No. It's what Ramana Maharshi did before people complained. What is the most direct experience of the truth? When in meditation?
Let go of thinking.
And when you let go of thinking, what's there? Silence. silence is the most powerful teaching, right? Because when you're silent, there's no concepts being played, right? And so when you're silenced, the truth is right there. It's right there. That's why Ramana Maharshi, one of the most famous teachers, for many years after he was awake and people came to him to be taught, he would just sit there. He would just sit there. And a lot of people woke up around him that got it, that the silence was the teaching, but then some people couldn't get that, and so they forced him to start to talk. So practice silence. The more time you spend in silence, away from thinking, right, that's a direct possibility of being related to the truth.